Do I need to put a mask on? Am I foreign now? Okay. All right, so what I want to do today, I have everything ready and then it's all gone off. Okay, so what I want to do today is just go through, like it's 173 pages long. But you'll see it jumps from, here, I'll show you what I mean. It jumps from point to point, and a lot of it we've dealt with on Monday already. So, and then there will be PowerPoint number 2. We don't have to finish this today. Yowza. This is what is this called in Google Classroom? What is it called? Not PowerPoint? What's it called? It's a bit different. Can you see Shreya?
Yes,
okay, so you can also open it up on Google Classroom. It's in the general folder for evolution. All right, so it's called present. I don't know. Okay, can I switch off the light? Do you think it'll be too? Let me just switch off the light, see if it's better for you guys. Is that okay? Shreya?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, so I'm going to flip through some of them quick, and if I'm going too quick, you must tell me, because remember we did it on Monday as well. Who wasn't here on Monday? You were all here, hey? All right. Now how does this, okay. So we talked about what is evolution. It's accumulation of changes, heritable changes, genes that mutate over many generations, then you could end up with a new species. And I think it will be good for you guys to go through this eventually, because it's going to be number 1, and number 2, and then number 3 will be hominids with the skulls. Okay, I've got 6 little ones, and you'll see them on Moodle as well. All right, so the other day was saying, well, is it a theory? Okay, a theory is not an opinion, it's an educated, it's fact, based on lots of evidence. All right, it's been tested, and it's fact, because so much evidence has been obtained, and you can go and watch there's a video on Google Classroom. I'm not going to show it today, we don't have enough time. Now, on Monday, I don't know if I mentioned gene pool. So I sort of did. I said, all, humans, we've got a gene pool. It's all the genes that we have for everything, all the different alleles for hair color and eye color and tallness and nose shape and ear shape. We've all got lots of alleles, and all those alleles form the gene pool. You see so much variation, but we're still one species. Okay? And that gene pool changes over time. And the gene or allele frequency changes over time too. Now this little calculation you don't need to know. So people in class here, there are 4 people today. So how many alleles will we have for eye color? Let's just pretend that eye color is caused by 2 alleles. 1 allele for dark eyes and 1 allele for blue or light colored eyes. Let's do it like that, dark and light. So there are 2 alleles for eye color. I know that there are many more, blue, green, gray, whatever. Let's just say that there are 2 alleles for eye color. There's 4 people in class today. How many alleles are there? Because we each inherit 2 copies of the gene, one from mom, one from dad. So we've each got how many alleles? 2. So how many alleles for eye color are there if there are 4 people in this lab today? There's 8. All right, so there's a total of 8. I don't have an allele for blue eyes, so I am big B, big B. Who's got blue eyes? Okay, Chloe's got blue eyes. Do you think you've got any? Okay, so we're going to make you little b as well.
Brown eyes.
And all the way back, hey? No. Not. So should we make you a carrier?
Yeah, my mom has green eyes.
Okay, so let's make Amy a carrier. So there are 8 alleles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is quite odd, but because our sample group is so small, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blue gene or light colored eye gene alleles, all right, over a total of 8, and then you work it out as a percentage. So then you could get the allele frequency for light colored eyes, 5 over 8 is like 60% or something. Okay, let's pretend. Times 100, not 1,000, is about 60%. And then the dark color, don't write this down, people, 3 over 8 times 100 is probably about 40%. It's just showing that in this class, because we've got, remember sample size, Mendel. The bigger the sample size, the closer you get to the proposed ratio of like tall to short and all of that. So we're a bit unbalanced now because we would expect brown or darker eyes to be more common. Okay, but you can work out the allele frequency for light eyes and dark eyes. We're not going to ask you to work it out, so please don't stress and don't work it out. But you can see here in this lab at the moment, light-colored eyes are more common. The frequency is higher than dark-colored eyes. But if we had the whole class here, we'd probably get that ratio like 75 to 25. Please don't write it down. Okay, so allele frequency means how common is the gene? How common is the allele for that gene? All right? So there's fewer short people like me, there's many more tall people. Okay, so please don't worry about working it out. Okay, so that's how they do it. So if we had, this is just showing how, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, hang on, I've just lost count. Let's just see if it tells us, I used to repeat. Okay, so if there are 18 people with eye color here, there's 18 of these double ones. Double means 2 alleles. We've each got 2 alleles for eye color, light and dark. All right, can you see that the allele for brown eyes, for darker eyes, is all the colored in ones, and the allele for blue eyes is all, and they've actually done the same as what we just did now. Okay, so in this particular example as well, even though there are now 18 people, the gene frequency or allele frequency for having light-colored eyes is 67%. Okay, but if we had the whole school, then maybe the allele frequency of brown-colored and dark-colored eyes would be higher. Okay, and for the whole population, you know, the whole global population of humans, we'd have to do that as well. All right, so please don't stress about working it out. It's just, do you understand the logic of it? Which allele for a particular gene is more constant? You can work it out. Okay, we won't ask you to though. So then we said, well, we need micro and macroevolution. And microevolution, you need changes in alleles. Long ago, hominids, 200,000 years ago, all had dark hair and brown eyes, yes? That's what they had. And then over time there were mutations, and the first person to have blue eyes was in Ethiopia. Please don't ask me when, I can't remember stuff like that. So then the gene frequency changed. So now we have more people with blue and light-colored, you know, green and whatever eyes. The frequency has changed over time. That is microevolution. Our gene pool is changing. So no longer do Homo sapiens have dark hair, dark skin, and dark eyes. We have medium brown, sort of light brown eyes, dark brown skin, pale, you know, fair skin. There's a whole new gene pool now. The frequencies have changed since the emergence of Homo sapiens 200,000 years ago. Okay. All right. Okay, so these accumulate. Now, if you're thinking of all the cheetahs in Africa, and if there was a cheetah that not developed, if there was a mutation for a cheetah to be faster, and then other cheetahs, you know, they passed on that gene, because the gene needs to be heritable. It's got to be passed from parent to offspring. And if it gets passed on through the population of cheetahs that once roamed Africa, you know, lots of them, then that gene that allele becomes more common. So now you get lots of fast cheetahs, and the ones that aren't as fast, they selected against. Natural selection selects against them. And the ones that have the mutated gene to make them faster or whatever it is, those genes will be passed on. Okay, and that's microevolution. Cheetahs becoming faster. Giraffes getting longer necks to eat the leaves at the top of the trees. Okay, so microevolutionary changes could result in changing gene frequency or allele frequency in a population. Does that sound okay? Get more tall ones, less short ones. More fast ones, less slower ones. Okay. So that could lead to macroevolution. If a group of cheetah were isolated and they had so many changes, many other changes, just like, you know, wolves and dogs, they're so different now they won't interbreed, so they are now two species. There were so many microevolutionary changes for dogs, because dogs are common ancestors, some wolf-like animal. Modern wolves are related to domesticated dogs, but we bred domesticated dogs. We chose characteristics. We artificially selected and bred them. So now being docile and willing to please is the the allele that is more common in dogs. So that's it was microevolution and then eventually evolution, because I don't think you can breed dogs and wolves now. Okay, I'd have to check that though. All right. So the common gene pool, and now there's other alleles emerging. That's what microevolution is. I don't want to read every single thing. So they often use this thing about beetles. A scientist goes to a mountaintop and she sees beetles. And she sees 80% of them are green and 20% are brown. She goes back the following year and the gene or allele frequency changes. So it was to 60-40 for whatever reason. Maybe they were preyed on more. Maybe they weren't as well camouflaged because there was more green bushes. So the green ones survived better and the brown ones were eaten more. So then the gene frequency or allele frequency changes. Okay, so that's microevolution. Why is it not macroevolution? They are still the same species. But eventually, if those two groups of beetles, green and brown, don't recognize one another anymore, because they're different colors, they don't even breed or whatever, then we could say that macroevolution occurs and you get two new species. But that takes a long time. Okay. Yes?
So you know how you said that they change color because they were put on more?
Oh, sorry, not change color. So if there are, like these green eyes and blue eyes, so there was a mutation for brown eyes that popped up, and then that brown, okay, so it depends which one this is. There's lots of beetle examples. So brown, having a brown color might make them more, not as well camouflaged as green beetles in green leaves. So maybe they are preyed on more. So it could be good for them or it could be bad for them, it depends. Or, if it was a forest and it becomes more like a grassland, then the brown ones will be better camouflaged in the grassland, so that you get a higher gene frequency or allele frequency, more of those being present because of the environmental change. If they can still breed with one another, if the brown ones that are not camouflaged better in grassland and the green ones that are more in the bushes in the grassland, and they can still breed, it's still one species. But eventually, if they are too different and they don't even recognize each other, or their behavior is different, they do little dances and things, I'm thinking birds, then a new species has formed, if they can no longer interbreed. Okay, so gene frequencies change depending on what's happening around. Is it green? Is it grassland? Is it this? Is it that? Okay, all right. Let's see what else there is here. So how does it happen? So we did talk the other day about mutation. What if the brown beetles just decided, I want to be with that group? And they went to the group with green beetles. So migration, okay? Genetic drift, we'll come to that now. Let's just see here. So mutation, a chance mutation makes some of them brown. The DNA and the nitrogen bases are, the wrong ones are brought in during DNA replication. So,
how does it know to go like brown and white?
How does it?
How does it know to go like brown, like red or something? So how does it change to that specific?
If the sequence of DNA changes, if the nitrogen bases aren't copied in this exact sequence, then we know a different protein is made.
Yeah.
If that protein results in a different color pigment being produced, and now it could be just a variation like blonde hair or red hair, but it could be not so good for beetles if they're in a green forest and they stand out being brown, or it could be helpful if they're in a grassland and are brown and don't stand out. It's a random mutation.
So it's just like completely random.
Just like a hair color and eye color, blue eyes and blonde and red hair. It's a random mutation. Okay, so yeah, microevolution, allele frequencies change because of random mutations. It's not driven by the environment. If the brown beetles are present, they are better, they're better adapted to living in a drier area. They're lucky, the luck of the draw, that they've got that mutation. Okay. All right. So then you could end up with changing phenotype, brown and green now. Yes.
Could you not say it's driven slightly by the environment, because the ones who are not suited to the environment will die?
Yes. So that's natural selection. So the environment selects for, but the environment doesn't say you must mutate now. The mutation was already there. The variation was already there. So the ones that are better camouflaged will survive and pass on their offspring. The ones that aren't won't. They won't have offspring. It's are you lucky or not? Are you lucky that you're a bacterium that is resistant to antibiotics or not? And you remember bacteria pass on those genes by pili and things into other bacteria, and then we get lots of resistant bacteria. It's like, do they have that random mutation or not? All right, and it's got to be in the germline cells. So if a bacterium, for whatever reason, no, that's maybe not such a good example. This becomes a bit tricky to think of an example. It's got to be in the egg or the sperm, because then it gets passed on to offspring. Okay. Right. If I was going to give an example, but then I would probably shoot myself in the foot. Okay, so if brown beetles migrate, that could change the gene frequency. So these little moths, speckled moths, and in England, when there's less pollution, you get lots of these little white-coloured moths. But when there was lots of pollution, there were more dark ones. But they were still both present and could breed. So with the green movement, we'll talk about this later, with the green movement in London, not lying too many buses or whatever, there's more speckled moths and fewer dark ones. The dark ones blended in with the pollution on the trees, but now the trees are full of nice green lichen. You know lichen? I've always got a branch somewhere. And so the gene frequency changes depending on the environment, but it's not the environment saying the moss must become light. It's like that gene is already present, and if you have that variation, you better adapt it. Okay, but we'll have a look at the speckled moth again later. All right, so genetic drift, this is what I understand is it's the random change in frequency of alleles. So, okay, wait, let me draw it, because I think it will help. So when there was lots of pollution in London, little dark moths, if they landed on the trees, they weren't seen. But if they were light-coloured moths, they were preyed upon. But now with the green movement, we've got less pollution, so our trees are nice and light. So now the light-coloured moths are going to survive, but the dark ones can't because they're going to be preyed on. So over here, the light-coloured ones would have been preyed on and the dark ones would have survived. So it's genetic drift. Which one's more common now because of random mutations that allow them to be better adapted to the environment or not? Okay. Or, just by chance that, this guy just steps on more green ones, or people just step on more green ones, or maybe they don't see the green ones on the grass, but they see the brown ones cutting and they don't step on them. Could be chance. Okay. All right. So in a population, there could have been a mutation, and one of them was red. So only 17% of them were red. Then there was, breeding and crossbreeding, and then 25, and then 40. So that red coloration became more common, random. Just depends. Okay. All right. So we have talked about natural selection. So obviously there is variation. There are different alleles for genes. All right. And organisms make more individuals than they need. And some of those variants are they're fitter. So this eagle will prey on the white mice. It will see them, but won't, the other ones, the brown ones, will blend in with the environment. So the brown mice are naturally selected by the environment. Because they have that mutation, it allows them to be better adapted to the environment. Please never say, because the environment is brown, they developed a mutation to be brown. No, they were born either white or brown, and if they have the mutation that makes them brown, they blend in with the environment, and therefore inherently they are better adapted to that environment. Okay, the environment didn't change them, they were that way, they were lucky. Okay. All right. And then they survive, and more brown mice are produced in the next generation. Okay, so so that's microevolution, changing colour of mice. Bacteria becoming resistant, to antibiotics. There's a better picture here. So antibiotics kill bacteria by interfering with their enzymes or their cell walls or their cell membranes or their DNA. But if that bacterium now mutates, now it's resistant to the antibiotic. The antibiotic can't kill it. Please go watch that at home. If we've got time tomorrow, I will. And then, they had a question on this in one past paper. So they brought in antibiotic resistance in the scenario of evolution. So all these, so antibiotic resistance tests. So remember, bacteria grow over the agar, and then they soak these little discs in different antibiotics, And all of these bacteria were killed around every single antibiotic disc. So all those antibiotics, 7 of them, work against the bacteria. But here, only those 3 antibiotics that were on the discs have killed bacteria around the discs, but these, well, this one, look there, totally resistant, totally resistant. No bacteria have been killed by that antibiotic in the disc. Some have been killed, and very few have been killed. Okay, so they did bring that in. I really can't remember which paper it was in which year. All right, there's the brown beetle story. So you're lucky if you are blending in and you don't get seen. It's more likely that you won't get preyed on by the bird. Okay, so if there's enough time and enough traits and alleles, then maybe you could end up with macroevolution, the formation of a new species. And it could work in the same way. It could be mutations, migration of individuals, just like those finches, the Galapagos finches, which were blown from Ecuador to the islands and were living in different places and fed on different foods, and then no longer recognized each other or mated with each other and were different species. Or a natural selection, survival of the fittest. Which genes do you have make you better adapted for the environment? You're lucky if you have them, okay? All right. So you've got to have, a lot of time for macroevolution. Not only 3.8 billion years, but you've got to have a lot of time for new species to emerge. And it's different for all of them, okay? And that's, those tree diagrams that we were drawing the other day, the tree diagrams, we could see how long, more or less, they've been around for, okay? All right. Oh, it's cold in here. Okay, so now, I must say, I didn't use this word, key innovations, or, a novel phonetic trait. A new physical feature is called a key innovation. I called it the other day, I called it a milestone. There's a nice little picture after this. I called it a milestone, a new physical trait. Okay, so let's see where that comes from. So if you've got a bony skeleton, 4 limbs, etc., let's rather look at the picture because we've done this already. Okay, so in a phylogenetic tree, right, this is a clade, a group of organisms that are related. You don't need to know the word clade. There's another clade, there's a clade, whatever you're looking at. So, why are these organisms different to insects? Because they've got vertebrae. Insects would be somewhere there. Why are sharks different to these guys? Sharks don't have a bony skeleton, they've got cartilage. Why are amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals different? Well, they don't have fins like fish, they've got 4 limbs. So these are milestones, or what did they say there? Key? See, I can't remember it, because I'm used to milestone. A unique phenotypic trait, a physical feature that makes these guys different. They've got a bony skeleton, fish, sharks don't. Okay, so evolution, random mutations leading to being better adapted to a changing environment. And there again, okay, the key innovation or the milestone would have been the development of limbs and being able to walk on land. All right. There's another video. Okay, so, all right, so that's how evolution could take place. So we need evidence for evolution. So do you remember ammonites? Ammonites? They were simple shelled organisms that lived way back when. So simple way back when, more complex now. Okay? That looks like, is that Archaeopteryx? I don't know. And then that's an insect in amber. Do you sort of remember from grade 10? So different types of fossils, all right, from grade 10. Who's that? Okay, so fossils, it's animals or plants or other organisms that lived a long time ago, preserved in rock or in amber or in ice, okay? Most organisms don't fossilize. The conditions aren't right. They decay too quickly. They get broken up and eaten and washed away and smashed, and they don't form fossils. The conditions have to be perfect, Alright, and then lots and lots of mud. When the animal dies and mud deposits, usually in rivers and lakes and things, mud compresses, hard rock eventually forms, and we'll go to the next one. Alright, then all this mud comes along, covers up, and then maybe water, and then the sediment, the sand, becomes hard, and minerals in the sand go in and replace the tissues. So there were living tissues, mud, and minerals go in and replace those tissues slowly. So eventually what was once tissues and bone and whatever is now mineral and gets hardened to form rock. Okay? Alright, so that's called permineralization. And we did do that briefly in grade 10. Alright, so sometimes it's the whole organism. So that shell was mineral, but more minerals were added, became rock. Inside was a soft-bodied animal which slowly decayed. Fossils form better when slow decay, low oxygen, covered in mud, wet places, slow. So the soft-bodied animal that was in there decayed slowly, and minerals from the sand took the place of it. So what was once the soft animal in there is now rock as well, not just the shell. Okay, this will finish off. Sometimes it's just like an imprint. It's like a leaf here. I've actually got one of those in my little room. Or fossils in ice, like this little mammoth, or little insects in amber, tree sap which hardens. Right. Okay, so tomorrow we'll carry on, and then we'll start looking at some of those funny words on that first little tree diagram page that I gave you. We'll put that all into perspective. Okay, people at home, are you understanding? Who else is there, Shreya?
It's just me, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Did you understand?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll carry on tomorrow with our triple. All right.
Thanks, ma'am.
Okay, go home. Oh, well, I'm going home now because it's freezing here. You guys, you aren't going home. Yes, Shreya.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye-bye.